Welcome to Equip Daily Bible Studies. We've been looking at Jesus' famous teaching on the hill from Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And in that teaching, we've seen Jesus make a couple statements about conflict. Now today, we're going to bring those together. Conflict is when it's you versus someone else. You're in a fight or an argument, or there's distance between you. You're not speaking. We saw first Jesus say, "Blessed are the peacemakers," those who bring peace. It is important to God. Let's see why and how by rereading Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24, and Matthew 7, verses 3 to 5. Click the link in the description if you don't got a Bible. The passage you read in chapter 5 is about why we should be peacemakers. And that is, it is really, really important to God. He says if you are giving a gift in the temple, we don't have a temple anymore after Jesus came, but they did back then and it was important. And Jesus is saying you could be in the middle of this important spiritual duty, and if you realize you got a problem with somebody, you drop your gift right there and go deal with that problem. Because it is important to God that people not be distant, but they be together. That means that your conflict with someone else is not so much about you and them, it's about you and God. So you might be thinking, am I going to be kind to this person who doesn't deserve it? Don't think of it that way. Think of it, am I going to serve God or not? It reminds me of when I was an ice cream scooper at JD's Frozen Custard in Englewood, Ohio. Delicious. And I would have a customer who was mean or angry, because they really want their ice cream. And so I'm talking to the customer, but it's not just about me and the customer, it's also about me and my boss who's standing right there, right? Even if I don't think the customer deserves kindness, I'm going to be nice, I'm going to be helpful, because I want to be a good employee to my boss, and she's right there watching, and I want her business to do well. The verses in chapter 7 you read are all about how to be a peacemaker. So you're in a situation where your friend's got a problem, they've got the speck in their eye, and you've got a problem, you've got the log in your eye, and Jesus is saying, deal with your part first. You need to be the first one to try to make things right. And if you don't, then you're not going to see the situation clearly. That's why it's all about stuff in your eye. Because if you don't deal with your part, you're not going to be able to see their part clearly at all. Let's take an example. You got Sally over here who's careless. She breaks things and she says things she doesn't mean. It's true. And then you got Trudy over here who's more uptight. She's very careful with what she says and does, but she also gets really mad at people who are not very careful. Well, sure enough, Sally borrows something of Trudy's and breaks it. And so Trudy yells at Sally, and Sally is sad. And now they are both angry with each other, and they're both thinking that it's the other person's fault, and it's their job to come back and fix it. After all, Trudy's over here thinking, okay, maybe I shouldn't have yelled so much, but none of this would have happened at all if Sally was just more careful with my stuff. And Sally's over here thinking, okay, yes, I should have been more careful, but the thing that I did was an accident. I didn't mean to break it, but then Trudy cruelly used her words to tear me down. Now, you are watching this, and you're probably thinking, oh, I can't stand people like that. And some of you are thinking that about Sally, and some are thinking that about Trudy, because we all see it the way we are. And now we're in a situation where they're not speaking to each other, and both expecting the other person to make it right. And if you multiply that by 1 billion, then you have our world today where we're so distant from each other and we all think it's the other people's fault. And Jesus has the solution. He says, if you are following me, then you go make it right. He says, take the log out of your eye first. Focus on the part that you did first before you try to get them to apologize for their part. And if you're wondering how you can do that, here are 2 really simple things you could do. First, apologize for whatever you added to the conflict. And second, ask how you can help. Those are 2 really simple things you can do in that situation. But what about when it really is all their fault? Okay, if you think and pray about the situation you're in and you honestly feel like you have done zero wrong, then yes, don't apologize. That would be a lie. But that is almost never the case. It's usually I've done some and they've done some. And when we say it's their fault, really what we mean is they added a big part to the conflict and I only added this tiny little bit. In that case, what Jesus is saying still applies. You should still deal with your part first. And I know some of you are thinking, but they did so much more bad than me. Why should I apologize for my little part if they haven't apologized for their big part? And the answer, once again, is because you followed Jesus. When we had a problem with God, he didn't just sit back and say, now you fix it. He decided to become one of us, die in our place so that we could be made right with God. And yes, if you're following him, then it is your job to take the first step towards people you have a problem with. But what if you don't know what you added to the conflict? Well, that's an easy one. Just ask the person and actually listen to them explain why they're upset. So that's Jesus on conflict. And let me tell you, this is one of those cases where if you take what Jesus has to say and you actually put it into practice, you actually try this, make the first move with that conflict that you're in right now, you might be amazed at the things that God does. So that's what we got today, and we'll see you next time. And until then, be strong in grace.